Welcome, friends. Today's story is one that will truly touch your heart and remind you that one simple act of kindness can change everything. The sun was setting over an empty stretch of highway. The world seemed quiet, painted in orange and gold. Emily, a young mechanic with a heart full of dreams but a life full of struggles, was driving home from a long, tiring day at her small roadside garage. Her clothes were stained with grease, and her hands were rough from work, but her spirit was pure, full of compassion. As she turned a corner, she saw a man standing beside a sleek black motorcycle, clearly stranded. The bike looked expensive, a model Emily had only seen in magazines. The man was frustrated, kicking at the tire, checking his phone, but there was no signal. She slowed down, rolled her window down, and asked, "Hey, need some help?" He turned to look at her, tall, well-dressed even under his leather jacket, but his eyes showed exhaustion. "Yeah, I've been stuck here for hours. It just died." Without hesitation, Emily parked her car and walked over. "Pop the seat," she said confidently, tying her hair back. The man raised a brow, surprised. "You know about bikes?" She gave a small laugh. "My dad used to fix these. I learned a few things." She got on her knees beside the machine, her hands moving with quiet skill. The smell of oil and dust mixed with the cool evening air. The man watched, realizing how effortlessly she worked. No complaints, no hesitation, just a quiet determination to help. Within 20 minutes, the engine came alive with a deep, powerful roar. He stared at her, stunned. "You fixed it? Just like that?" Emily wiped her hands with an old rag and smiled. "Yeah, it was just a loose connection. You're good to go." He reached into his jacket, pulling out his wallet. "At least let me pay you." She stopped him gently. "No need. Help someone else when you get the chance." "That'll be enough." The man looked at her for a long moment, almost as if trying to remember her face. "Thank you," he said quietly, then rode off into the fading light, before driving home to her tiny apartment. She didn't know that the man she helped was not just any biker. He was Alexander Reed, CEO of Reed Motors, one of the biggest motorcycle companies in the world. The next morning, Emily opened her garage and froze. In front of her stood two luxury cars, and out stepped Alexander, this time in a tailored suit, surrounded by his team. He smiled warmly. "Miss Emily, I couldn't stop thinking about your kindness. Most people passed by me yesterday, but you stopped. You reminded me of something I'd lost, humanity. I want you to come work with me. I want your skills and your heart in my company." Friends, never underestimate a small act of goodness. You never know when your helping hand might be the key to your destiny. Like, subscribe, comment, and share for more heart-touching stories, only on Soul of Kindness. Welcome, friends. The story continues, and what happens next will leave you speechless. Emily couldn't believe what had just happened. One moment she was fixing bikes in her small, dusty garage, and the next she was shaking hands with Alexander Reed, the billionaire CEO she had unknowingly helped on that lonely highway. Her life had suddenly taken a turn she never expected. Alexander invited her to visit the company headquarters, Reed Motors, a name she had only ever seen on shining billboards and glossy magazines. For a girl who had grown up fixing old bikes with her late father, it felt like stepping into another world. The next day, Emily arrived at the towering glass building. She wore her simple denim jacket and work boots, the same ones she wore every day. People in suits turned their heads as she walked through the elegant lobby. Some whispered, some smiled politely. Others frowned, wondering why the CEO himself was waiting at the door for her. Alexander greeted her warmly. "Emily, I'm glad you came. Come, let me show you something." He led her through long hallways filled with the hum of machines and the gleam of innovation. "This is where dreams are built," he said, "but lately we've forgotten what really drives us, passion." Emily looked around, awe filling her eyes. "It's beautiful, but it feels so distant," she said softly. "Machines don't run on just fuel. They run on care." Alexander smiled at her words. "Exactly what I wanted to hear. You see, Emily, I've been trying to develop a new line of bikes, ones that are strong, efficient and sustainable, but something's been missing. I think it's heart. And you, Emily, you have that heart. Before she could respond, a group of senior engineers entered the room, looking skeptical. One of them, Mr. Carter, crossed his arms. Sir, with all due respect, she's just a roadside mechanic. Are you sure she's the person to help us design the next generation of bikes? Emily froze, feeling the sting of his words. She wanted to turn away, but Alexander looked at her firmly. Mr. Carter, yesterday she fixed an engine that 10 of your engineers couldn't. I trust skill and sincerity more than fancy degrees. The room went silent. Carter looked away, embarrassed. Alexander turned to Emily. Would you show them how you did it? With a deep breath, Emily nodded. She rolled up her sleeves, grabbed her tools, and began inspecting one of their prototype bikes. The engineers gathered around, watching curiously. Her hands moved swiftly, confidently. Her mind focused. She explained every step, every detail, every small adjustment she made. Within minutes, the bike came alive with a perfect smooth sound. The engineers stared in shock. One of them whispered, "That's impossible. We couldn't get it to run for weeks." Alexander looked at her proudly. That's why she's here. Friends, life changes in the blink of an eye when your heart is pure. Welcome, friends. If you thought the last part was powerful, wait till you hear what happened next. Because this moment changed not just Emily's life, but the lives of everyone around her. Weeks had passed since Emily became head of engine innovation at Reed Motors. Her days were now filled with meetings, designs, and workshops. She was still the same humble girl from the small-town garage, but now the world finally saw her worth. Her ideas were transforming the company. Yet deep inside, Emily never forgot where she came from. The smell of engine oil, the sound of tools clinking, the smile of her father, who taught her that a true mechanic fixes with heart, not just with hands. One afternoon, Alexander walked into her design lab, holding a file in his hand. "Emily," he said, "I want you to lead our most important project, a new motorcycle designed for everyday heroes, affordable, strong, and beautiful. I want it to carry your name." Emily froze, eyes wide. "My name?" "Yes," Alexander said. "You once told me that kindness can move engines and people alike. I want this bike to represent that power with purpose." Emily smiled through tears. "Then let's build something that gives people hope." The next few months were nothing short of magic. Emily worked day and night alongside engineers who once doubted her. She sketched designs, tested models, and even repaired broken prototypes herself when others gave up. Slowly, a masterpiece was born, the Soul, a sleek black and silver motorcycle inspired by the one she had fixed that fateful evening. When the prototype was finally unveiled, the entire company gathered around. The bike gleamed under the soft lights, elegant, powerful, and full of heart. The crowd erupted into applause. Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling as she spoke. "This bike isn't just metal and bolts," she said. "It's built from kindness. From the moment someone stopped to help a stranger on a lonely road. I believe every act of compassion leaves a spark. And this is what happens when that spark becomes something greater." The room went silent for a moment, then thunderous applause filled the air. Even Mr. Carter, the engineer who once doubted her, stood and clapped with tears in his eyes. After the event, Alexander approached her quietly. "Emily, I have something for you." He handed her a small box. Inside was a golden keychain engraved with her father's initials. Emily gasped, her eyes filling with tears. "Where did you—" Alexander smiled gently. "I had my team look into your father's old workshop. It's still there, and I bought the land. I want to turn it into a community training center, the Reed and Emily Foundation, to teach young people about mechanics, innovation, and kindness." Emily couldn't speak. She broke down in tears, clutching the keychain close to her heart. "You've given me back my dream," she whispered. "Friends, remember, one act of goodness can light 1,000 hearts." Months had passed since the world witnessed Emily's rise from a humble roadside mechanic to one of the most inspiring innovators of her generation. The Reed and Emily Foundation had opened its doors, and hundreds of young men and women were now learning not just how to fix engines, but how to believe in themselves. Every morning, Emily would walk through the training center, the same tools, the same smell of grease, but now filled with laughter and dreams. The walls were painted with a simple message her father used to say, "Kindness is the strongest engine of all." Alexander often visited too, proud and quietly moved by what Emily had created. The two shared a bond of deep respect, built not on status or money, but on humanity. Together, they worked to expand the foundation across cities, giving opportunities to those who had none. One day, as Emily was preparing for the foundation's anniversary event, she received a letter. It was handwritten, the paper slightly wrinkled. She opened it slowly and began to read. "Dear Miss Emily, I was the biker you helped that evening. I never told you. That night, I was on my way to end my life. I'd lost everything, my company, my family, my will to keep going. But your kindness, your smile, your selflessness, it stopped me. You didn't know me, but you gave me hope. You saved my life that night. Because of you, I started over. I got a job again. I helped someone else on the road just like you did. Thank you for reminding me that goodness still exists. A stranger you saved." Emily's hands trembled as she read those words. Tears streamed down her face. In that moment, she realized the true power of kindness. It doesn't just change one life. It creates ripples that touch countless others. That evening, at the anniversary event, hundreds gathered, students, mechanics, reporters, and families whose lives Emily had touched. Cameras flashed, but Emily's eyes searched the crowd for something deeper. Her father's photo, hanging on the stage wall beside the words, "For every heart you lift, you build a better world." Friends, when I stopped to help a stranger on the road that evening, I thought it was nothing. I thought it was just a small act of kindness. But now I see that was the moment my destiny began. Kindness doesn't need a stage, a name, or a camera. It just needs courage. The courage to care when no one else does. The crowd erupted in emotion, a standing ovation that lasted minutes. Cameras captured every tear, every smile. Emily closed her eyes for a moment and whispered, "Thank you, Dad. We did it." Outside, the night sky glittered with stars, and a soft breeze swept through the foundation courtyard, rustling the flags that read, "Soul of kindness, a spark that never fades." Friends, remember this? One good deed may seem small, but in the heart of the right person, it can grow into a miracle that changes the world. Welcome, friends. This is the final and most emotional chapter of Emily's story. A story that began on a quiet road, with one act of kindness that turned into a legacy of love, hope, and humanity. Years had passed since that unforgettable evening when Emily helped a stranded biker without asking for anything in return. What began as a simple gesture had blossomed into a global movement. The Reed and Emily Foundation now had centers in dozens of cities, training thousands of underprivileged youth, giving them purpose, dignity, and a future they could be proud of. But today was special. Today marked the 10-year anniversary of that fateful day, the day everything changed. A massive celebration was organized at the Foundation's headquarters, and people from around the world came to honor Emily's work. As the crowd gathered, screens around the hall displayed photos and videos, Emily fixing bikes, teaching young girls. But amidst all the cheers and applause, Emily's heart was quietly heavy. She missed her father, the man who taught her the meaning of kindness. The empty chair on the stage, with his old toolkit placed on it, reminded her of where it all began. The lights dimmed. A soft melody began to play. Alexander stepped onto the stage, older now but still carrying that same gentle pride in his eyes. 10 years ago, he began. A young woman reminded me that humanity is the real engine that keeps this world running. She didn't ask for fame, money, or recognition. She only gave. And because she gave, thousands of lives were touched. Thousands of dreams were born. Thank you, all of you, she began in a trembling voice. But if you're here to celebrate me, then you've missed the real message. This isn't my story. This is the story of what kindness can do. Friends, she said softly, if you ever think your small act doesn't matter, remember me. Remember this story. You never know when helping one lost soul could set your own destiny in motion. Be kind, not for reward, not for attention, but because the world needs hearts that still care. The hall filled with standing applause, the loudest the foundation had ever heard. Cameras captured the moment as the lights above shimmered like stars. Emily smiled through her tears, whispering softly, "We did it, Dad. We really did." As the celebration ended, Emily stepped outside alone for a moment. The night sky was calm, and the same road where it all began stretched far in the distance. A soft wind blew, carrying the faint scent of engine oil. Her father's memory lingering like a warm embrace. A single tear fell down her cheek, but this time it wasn't from sadness, it was peace. She whispered into the night, "Kindness never dies, it only multiplies." And as the camera faded out, the final words appeared on the screen. One act of kindness can change the world. Like, subscribe, comment, and share if this story touched your heart, only on Soul of Kindness.